So today I'm going to talk to you about the Oracle database appliance. This is, let's say, the second generation of a database appliance. So as you can see, people are familiar with the database appliance. All of a sudden, there appears to be extra storage included with the Oracle database appliance. Let's get back to a few basics about the database appliance and why did we see that we had a need for a database appliance and what exactly is a database appliance. Well, obviously, in today's IT world, there's many costly, complex solutions, and there's a requirement for businesses to be able to, let's say, do these solutions and to, let's say, to attain a higher level of serviceability and availability within a customer, within a business unit. There's seem to be a growing need for availability and, let's say, uptime within business infrastructure. So up until now, what has happened is that for, let's say, from a database perspective, let's say, to get high availability within the database, there was always seemed to be specific needs required. And like I say, those needs were across a number of different areas. So for instance, number one, you would have needed, obviously, database expertise. Number two, you would have needed operating system expertise. Number three, you would have needed, for instance, networking expertise. Number four, you would have needed high availability expertise. So these are just some of the things that a company would need when their, let's say, service level agreements were, let's say, very high and they couldn't afford any downtime. Now, especially for the smaller to medium enterprises with let's say, a limited IT budget, that's always very difficult and complex to implement and deploy. There's always been a high risk of failure trying to get the database, let's say, for instance, a database to run in a highly available fashion. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the idea of, let's say, high availability. Depends what level of, there's different levels of it, but for most businesses it would be 7 by 24 by close to 365 uptime. And that's always been, in the IT world, a difficult thing to attain because you have so many different players involved in, let's say, attaining availability and, let's say, high levels of availability within the IT world. So there's always been seen as a great, let's say, how do you say, danger of failure and risk of failure, okay? So high availability in the modern IT world is always still something that companies strive to attain, but they don't always attain. But specifically for things like banking systems and, let's say, insurance companies, government systems, defense systems, high availability sometimes is, let's say, mission critical and mission critically important to people's infrastructure and to people's business, okay? So Oracle a few years ago came up with the idea, well, they did a few, let's say, a bit of research, did a few polls and found out what was the most difficult thing in people's infrastructure. And the one thing that people always came back to them was the ability to have their database up and running 7 by 24 by 365. And they said that the most difficult thing was, let's say, the administration, the installation, and the upkeep of such a device. So what Oracle came up with was, first of all, was a thing called an Exadata machine. Now, the Exadata machine was seen for specifically for, let's say, high-end users who needed an extreme amount of computer capacity, who needed a database, and who needed it up and running very quickly. So Oracle came up with the idea to engineer a system of software and hardware to work together, okay? So this engineered system, this Exadata system, had very fast internal networking connections, for instance, InfiniBand, so it'd be 40 gig internal network connections. It had the operating system, which was Oracle Enterprise Linux pre-installed. It had the database pre-configured in a rack configuration, and it was in a 42U rack chassis pre-installed, okay? So they delivered these to some of the customers, tried it out, some of the very large banks, very large insurance companies, and all of a sudden they discovered that the customer liked the idea of such a deployment because It meant they didn't have to get all their own ducks in a row. They didn't have to get a network guru in there. They didn't have to get their database guru in there. They didn't have to get the operating system guru in there. It came pre-configured, pre-installed in a box, okay? And then let's say further iterations of this product, because obviously a 42 RU X3 machine in a complete chassis for some customers would have been considered what we would consider overkill. So they broke it down into quarter and half rack versions of this Exadata machine. So we've had a few versions of this Exadata machine, but Oracle actually looked again and they said, well, some customers don't need such capacity. Their businesses won't grow to that size, okay? But some customers might need the beauty to be able to expand their capacity. So Oracle decided then to bring out a machine which would fit in this niche level market. Also, it would, let's say small and medium enterprises, it will fulfill some of the requirements of their business to have a highly available database with sufficient storage to enable the company to grow, okay? So the idea here is that the build versus buy. The build model which is what has gone previous to now, where you have your network, you have your database, you have your operating system, you have your applications, you have your clustering, you have your high availability. To get all these ducts lined up in a row was quite time-consuming, quite costly, because you need a network administrator, you need all these specialists to get all this together. But Oracle decided that, okay, what we'll do is we will put this all into a box, bundle it together, engineer it, and ship it off to the customer. So we had the build versus buy model, okay? Now the buy model, it's simple, it's reliable, it's affordable, okay? Any questions? So to continue on here, here's the, let's say, the build versus buy model again. So for instance, if I wanted a highly available database today, for instance, and I wanted to go out and let's say build it on my own, first of all what I do is I get my hardware. So I get my rack installable servers. So buy the hardware, order the hardware. How many do I need? Oh, 4, 5, 1, 2, depending on my, let's say, needs. I need some sort of a networking capability. So go off to Cisco, get myself a small hub maybe if I'm a small or medium enterprise. For instance, if I was going to go Microsoft MS SQL, I go off and buy myself my Microsoft MS SQL server license. Then if I wanted a bit of storage, because I needed a bit of growth from a database, I might have to buy some sort of storage device. Next thing what I need, if I need somebody to come in and give me a hand, because I'm only a 150 person organization. I have 2 IT guys, okay? They're all very, very good at what they do. They're in some respects, you know, specialists in a lot of things, but they're not masters in one particular field. And they're all very, very busy. So they're going to need some assistance to get this up and running, okay? So this is if I wanted to build my own, what I'd have to do. But what's happened now then, however, is that we've decided to, let's say, make this go away. We've put it all into one box and shippable to the customer, okay? So the customer just presses a button, installs the Oracle database appliance, okay? So it comes with the storage, it comes with the built-in networking, it comes with the high availability configured, depending on what option you want. It comes with the networking already set, comes with obviously the Oracle database. Obviously there's a few other things you're going to need in here if you want high availability. For instance, let's say Microsoft's high availability. Microsoft's own word in one of the documents I read from Microsoft was, high availability with my MS SQL is not for the faint-hearted. Now they're Microsoft's words, not mine. I have the document. Because it's highly complex to install and configure. For instance, if you want true high availability, for instance, within a Microsoft SQL Server, sometimes you need a third party. You need a third party. Looking for the word now. What's the name of it again? Load balancer to work in conjunction with, for instance, MS SQL Server to get database high availability together. Okay. So in other words, it's not easy. It's not straightforward, especially for the small to medium enterprise. Okay. So what we're saying here is the staff and skills required to deploy high availability. What's gone before in the old world old world days, database administrator, installation expertise. You need your technical consultant to go out and put this all together. You need to speak to your network admin to configure the network settings. Your storage admin for the excess capacity or to take into account the growth. Optimization skills, who's going to come in and configure it and make sure everything's working. Sysadmin, okay, you're going to have to talk to your sysadmin, the person who's going to run the thing on a day-to-day basis. Then we're looking for high availability expertise. It's few and far between in the field, especially when we're talking about databases, especially when we're talking about operating systems, especially when we're trying to get the whole thing to work together. What do we have here? Oracle have now brought out the second generation ODA appliance, Oracle Database Appliance. It encompasses all these into one machine. Any questions? What also the Oracle Database Appliance does is it's got a thing called a specific patch management utility. So when you actually set up and install this utility, you can actually automatically set it up so when a new patch for the Oracle database machine comes out, it will automatically update the entire machine itself, from the firmware level right through to the database tier. Okay? What's the beauty about this? Okay? Now people, well, you know, it's only a patch. You know, you use your own, let's say, desktop. You know, now and then you get asked to update a patch. Boom, 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 off you go. Reboot your machine, it's updated the latest security fixes. Okay, that's very good. But when we're talking about disparate, let's say, in a highly available world, when we've got a different database, when we've got a different operating system, when we've got a different firmware, these have all got specific dependencies. Okay? So in other words, when you're talking about, let's say, patching some of these machines, it's not just a case of running an executable. There has to be, let's say, different. The one affects the other, so you have to take into account. For instance, I was working for another IT company in Australia, and they had within an Australian bank, and we actually had a 12-man patch steering committee. Okay, so we used to sit every month, and we used to talk about patches. Okay, for an hour every month, a patch steering committee. I mean, how ludicrous is that? And it would be the players across the infrastructure. And people would be logged on. The patch steering committee meeting. Sounds like fun, you know? How do you want to spend your Friday afternoon talking about how we're going to patch our operating system, how we're going to patch our databases? So in this instance, when you get your build your own, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that every time a new patch comes out from one of the disparate parts of your highly available system, okay, you are going to have to, let's say, look at each and every component within your entire infrastructure to see how a patch is going to affect the other patch, okay? Which means that it's all of a sudden it grows exponentially the time it takes for you to administer and work on such a system, okay? And think of the time, the money, the effort, the expense, okay? And the downtime, the time for your business. Whereas here with Oracle, four patches per year, once a quarter. Patch bundle, off you go. Okay?
That bundle updates all the software.
Goes from firmware all the way up. Okay? Including database, indeed. Now, obviously some sysadmins don't like these changes, and they don't like, let's say, for instance, a foreign, let's say, you know, let's say, one of their partners automatically updating things on their systems. So it's not for everybody, for various reasons. But the option is there for the customer.
But the database will be connected to an application.
Yeah.
And let's say it's not an Oracle application. It is some other company's application, some third-party company's application.
Yeah.
Which is supported for 11G, release 2, version, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we update the, you know,
right.
11.2 to 11.2.0.1 to 11.2.0.2.
Yeah.
And now, because there is only bundled patch, everything has to get upgraded at one time, patched at one time.
Yeah.
So will it not affect the application if the application is dependent on a specific version of the
Well,
database?
that might be said, but think now, how does a database connect to an application?
Through a middleware?
For instance, but how does it connect with the middleware? It makes for instance, let's say sometimes it might be making an ODBC connection.
Yes.
Okay? Now, those, for patching purposes, especially if the application is somewhere else, okay? For patching purposes, there would be very, very little impact on that sort of a connection that is being made, because, for instance, all you're doing is you're wrapping a SQL statement within the ODBC going out to speak to the application, okay? So now, there might be dependencies if you have your application installed on the ODA machine, okay? Right? But invariably, if they're going to be Oracle applications, they should be certified. They will not, and for any major, let's say, applications, there should be not any issues whatsoever in regards to what you're talking about. But obviously, there has to. It's not just sit there and just do everything. It's not like a completely uber intelligent machine in that sense of the matter. But it's close and a lot better than 7 by 24. Okay, we're certainly mitigating the risk of checking dependencies. Okay. From an OS, from a firmware level to an OS level to a database level, okay?
So my question was, can customers just probably not upgrade the database software, but only do the firmware and OS
Yes.
and storage software?
Yes.
And all that? Can they do that with database appliance?
Yes.
They say, I like the bundle concept.
Yeah.
Within the bundle, if there are multiple checkpoints, I'll remove one of the checkpoints and only upgrade the rest.
Yes, they can. There's options.
There are options like
Yeah.
I upgrade Linux, I upgrade
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
Okay, cool.
So there are options for the customer to do that. I don't know how restricted they are, but certainly they do have some options there. For instance, I don't update the firmware at the moment because I don't want this box. Because sometimes even these 4 updates, sometimes you might have to take one of the nodes within the Oracle database appliance down. Okay. For instance, a lot of times when you update firmware and stuff, there has to be a recycle for things to change. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, so restarting.
Exactly. But what you do is, if you really want 7 by 24, what you do is you update one of the nodes, and then restart it, and then failover, boom, update the other one. Okay, so that's the sort of way that would work. So what does this mean? Let's say, quick look at, what the competition are doing, and so what Oracle and Intel did, well, I just think it was Oracle. They tasked OCR International, which would be an independent, let's say, consultancy group, to have a look at, let's say, maintaining a highly available database of one of our major competitors over 3 years. Major competitor in the database field at the moment, well, there's obviously 2 or 3, well, there's a few, but let's say DB2 from IBM and MSSQL from Microsoft. So they looked at Microsoft over 3 years, okay? What OCR found was the time to install and maintain MSSQL over a 3-year period, okay? This is also with the installation and the configuration and all that, was 2,173 hours, okay? For an ODA appliance, what was the time for the maintenance, the installation, and the upkeep of an ODA appliance over 3 years? 112 hours, okay? Now that's quite compelling. It's quite compelling in the IT world for, let's say, what would you do with the extra 2,000 man hours, okay? That's nearly a full employee, okay, for an entire year. What would you do with that time? Now, from my own personal experience, having actually installed and configured MSSQL in a clustered environment, I have to concur with these findings. We got it to work eventually, don't get me wrong, but it was a painful procedure, and it took probably to get it right from dev, tests, pre-prod, prod, UAT. It must have taken us in excess of 6 or 7 weeks to get it up and running. Okay, so I have done this myself. So these figures are not too far off the mark. So you have to ask yourself in the IT world, what can you do with those extra 2,000 hours a year? Okay. So here's let's say a build your own versus the Oracle database appliance. So obviously time is growing exponentially here. We've got our sysadmin, storage administration, network administration, optimization expertise, installation expertise. Boom, we have one device up and running. I have seen this installed within 120 minutes. What do you need? You need 120 minutes. What do you need? Oh, just the only thing you have to do to get this installed is you have to get network configuration, and all it is IP addresses.
Yes.
Okay? Where's node 1 going and where's node 2 going? That's it. Okay? You don't need to speak to your Cisco certified engineer now to get this. You speak to whoever's involved with your network. You need to know what your root password is, settings, because this has got some beautiful phone home technology. So if you wanted to, let's say, automatically update an SR or open an SR, a service request with Oracle, it can automatically do so. So you configure that option when you're doing the installation. So if, for instance, it detects, oh, I have a wobbly hard disk, a wobbly hard drive not working correctly in bay 22, okay? It will automatically inform Oracle support. Oracle support will then go and have a look at the logs. So, yes, we have a failing drive in drive 22. It will then dispatch a new drive, okay? It will send the administrator an update stating, by the way, you have a drive which is failing within the chassis, within bay 22, for instance. The drive is on your way. When you receive the drive, here are the instructions. And what happens is the system will automatically, if it's double mirrored or triple mirrored, will automatically fail itself over. You pop the drive in, you'll have to perform a restart, and off you go, up and running again. The system will automatically then rebalance your storage within your database.
So the drives are not really hot swappable. You said the word restart the system, so that's why I'm asking you.
For instance, I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Because if it is restartable, that means every time there's a hardware failure or a thing I need to restart, that's going to be like...
I think it is hot swappable. We'll come to that later on. I think what will happen is that the system will know it'll fail itself over, because these Oracle ODA come with either the option to be triple mirrored or double mirrored. So what it does is it'll actually rebalance itself, and you will put the hard drive in.
When
Okay.
you say rebalance, can you be a little specific?
So basically, you've got, let's say, we've got let's say it's mirrored. There's built-in excess capacity for this eventuality. Okay. So in other words, so if it's just mirrored, let's say it's mirrored 12 on 12, okay? But it will have excess capacity. For instance, if one drive fails, it will be able to let's say the other node will buffer what is needed until it's replaced, and then it will rebalance itself. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. Okay, so what does the Oracle Database Appliance X3-2, the second generation of our Oracle Database Appliance, look like? Well, here we have it now in front of us. Obviously, you can see there's more storage. It looks a bit denser. What does it bring us? It brings us twice the performance. Now it brings it up to 4 times potential storage. We've obviously still got a solution in the box. What it would be really suitable for, people ask me, well, where would this be really applicable? Where would we need it? Well, for instance, let's say if you've got, let's say, a large supermarket chain which does a lot of, let's say, data mining. Let's say each individual store, let's say, crunches the numbers from their, let's say, store cards on a daily basis. And then it goes off to a bigger Exadata machine in the HQ. Well, for instance, this would be a very, very good branch appliance to number crunch that data which is gained through, for instance, the use of store cards. It's very, very highly scalable, whereas the last database appliance was, let's say, scalable up to 24 cores. This is now scalable up to 32 cores. Currently, and so obviously there's one absolute beauty of the database appliance is that it's scalable. So in other words, you turn on the cores as you need them. So you pay as you grow is the method that we're using here. For this database version of the database appliance, you start in the bare metal world at 4. You can start at 2 cores in the virtualized world, okay? So you can scale it from 4 up to 32 cores. The beauty of that is that you're not paying for the entire database license, because we won't run on a per core license model. You're not paying for all the cores until you actually need them. So whereas, let's say, if you were to install, let's say, if you want to install Oracle RAC on a HP server and you wanted the same capacity, you would actually have to work out what you're going to need when it's running to its extreme, and you would have to, say, license and pay for the licenses for that solution from the get-go. Okay? You have a question there?
Yes. Has the older, the first generation, has it gone end of life, or will it go end of life, or are they two different strategies for two different types of?
No, the first one, I think, I'm not sure how many. Basically, it's not going to be orderable, I would say, within the next 3 or 4 months. I mean, just if we wait that there are some left. So I think they're working through those orders. So I expect the first generation ODA to go within the next six months to a year, I'm assuming. Okay. So what does it look like, and how do we, to install it? Let's say, so it's a rackable system. It's a 4RU cable. Comes with like about 6 or 8 cables, depending on how much storage you put in. It's a wizard-driven install. It's very, very easy to get up and running. Okay, really, really simple device. How does it work? Well, it's obviously what you do. You install it. You plug in your either your remote console device, or you plug in via USB, get your keyboard and a screen up, and basically all of a sudden you invoke a wizard, and it goes one button deployment, welcome, config type, system info, network info, and off you go. It's literally, this is where the wizard comes up and starts to install. Okay, it's literally that easy. You have your networking information, you have what type database. It gives you from very small to very large. Okay, so depending on what sort of database you would like, it will configure it automatically for you. One button health check. You'll have 0 admin on the storage side of things. Okay, and you have very, very automated support. So for instance, where, let's say in the past, did we have, let's say, from an ODA perspective, let's say a lot of people ask for some concrete examples. Where did this work for customers out there in the field? Okay, we have many actually examples because we've had hundreds, if not thousands already, of deployments of ODA. But for instance, a good business case for this would have been Interactive One. Okay, Interactive One is a premier social media site, a bit like Facebook, but slightly different insofar it provides services and other things that Facebook do not give for the African American community. It's been tailored for within the United States. So what was the Interactive One's key goals? What was their KPIs? Okay, they wanted to be up 24/7/365. If I want to log on to my Interactive One account at midnight on Christmas Day, I want to expect the system to be up. Okay. Now, what was their, let's say, key goals, or what was their situation? Was that they had a refresh of old systems coming up. And the problem was they had no specific expert in one area of what they wanted to keep up and running. Now, prior to this, they'd had some downtime, okay? They had quite a bit, let's say 40, 50 hours per year of downtime, which was kind of hurting their brand, okay? What did they need, and what did ODA bring to the table? Well, basically, what they had pre-ODA was, let's say, they had 2 full storage racks, 6 databases. It was using 84U. So they were using just exactly 2 cabinets, 2 full cabinets, okay? And also, don't forget one other thing about the ODA is that there's a beauty in the power consumption that you gain, okay? So they were using 50 amps per year. So with Interactive One, they had a fairly significant challenge. Also, another thing that we haven't really mentioned up until now is that the Oracle Database Appliance is a very, very fast machine. It's got very fast interconnects. Crimson, for instance, had a very disparate, sprawled database architecture, and they had, let's say, 15 or 16 databases strewn on different servers. They had insufficient IOPS, as you could imagine. Let's say with a social media site, there's going to be a lot of people hitting this. There's going to be a lot of hits in the database, so their IOPS are going to be very, very huge. So what Interactive One did with Oracle and with one of our integration partners, Sintra, did was went in and had a look. And at the start, Sintra kind of went, ooh, that looks a bit expensive for us, this ODA appliance for the hardware refresh. We can do this cheaply with HP and things like this. However, we were able to show the customer that because you're allowed to transfer your existing Oracle database licenses, that you can actually move these. That they were under the impression that say, oh, we're going to have to get more Oracle licenses because this is an ODA appliance, it's an Oracle database appliance. It is not the case. You can transfer your existing licenses. Now, this means it's a very good play for, let's say, consolidation, okay? And what actually happened within, let's say, a few weeks of, let's say, the deployment with the assistance of Sintra, let's say, it's slowly but surely, they noticed an immediate performance increase, okay? Immediate performance. Bottlenecks had gone away to within, let's say, 2 or 3 months when, let's say, the Oracle database appliance they consolidated their 15 instances onto one Oracle database appliance with all 24 cores enabled up and running, with rack and with full high availability, okay? So that was the beauty of, let's say, the deployment with Interactive One and how, let's say, the use of this device really helped them to leverage savings from power, from storage, from cooling, from database licenses, okay? So with a 50% reduction in power, they saved their rack space. They were renting rack space off a service provider, okay? Not cheap. So all of a sudden they went from 2 chassis to just over a quarter of a chassis, okay? I'm going to skip the next slide. What is this anyway, just quickly?
Just normal.
Okay, and let's say, to continue on then, for further research for your, let's say, another, let's say, research company did some investigation with Intel, actually. Intel and Oracle sponsored the research, and the findings came that 42% experience challenges meeting database service level agreements. It's nearly half the people. So anytime you're talking to database administrators, the problem is keeping the database up and running, bottlenecks, speed, and reliability. 66% have had to work overnight due to a database emergency. I've been that person. I've actually sat in that data center at 3 in the morning wondering what's going on to support. It's not a nice place to be. So what is it? I mean, we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive now into, let's say, the technology behind it. We will have a hardware, like a sort of a bit of a dive into the hardware here. Okay, it's a dual socket Oracle Enterprise Linux server. It's got redundant 10 gigabyte interconnects, so hence the speed within the machine itself. It's double mirrored or triple mirrored. So it comes with an enormous amount of storage. You can double or triple mirror the storage for the database itself, okay? It's got redundant hot swappable power, cooling, and fans. So it's got built-in redundancy also. Okay, further look into it, okay? The base configuration details. So for instance, whereas the last generation of our Oracle database appliance had 24 cores, now we've got 32 cores in there. It's got nearly 3 times the memory, 512 gigabytes of main memory. So when we were talking about speed, IOPS, that helps. Then we've got the 10 times interconnect, redundant 10 gigabit T-based interconnects, okay? Then for, let's say, our networking, we've got 4 ports, we've got 10 gigabit NICs. Then for storage capacity on the base system, it's twice the storage, whereas the original Oracle database appliance came with 12 terabytes of storage. This comes with 18 terabytes of raw storage. Okay.
How did
24 cores.
12 terabytes raw storage, triple mirror used to be 4 terabytes usable storage.
Yes.
So double of 12 is 24. This is just probably 1.5.
No, this is 18 total raw on the new machine. The last one had
12 raw.
12 raw. So it's 6 terabytes. It's an increase of 6. So pretty much this is what the system is like. And now also this is let's say raw storage. We do have, let's say, the ability to add on another storage shelf, which is an increased enhancement for the customer. Boom, here we have it, okay? So we've got a zero admin storage expansion. So you can double your available storage, okay? You can actually order an extra shelf of disks to go into the Oracle database appliance. A lot of people have asked me, hang on for a second, this is not the same as an 8th rack Exadata, okay? No, we can do a separate session on the 8th rack Exadata, but It's like comparing apples and orange. If you were installing an 8th rack Exadata, okay, the situation is this: you are going to be seeing the expansion, the growth, because your next one up is going to be a quarter, and then you're going to be up to a half. Okay, so it's different. It's a different model for different customers. So this would not be, let's say, seen as a competition or, how would you say, replacement or a cheap Exadata. Also, for instance, it doesn't have super fast InfiniBand internal connections. Okay, so if a lot of people saying, oh, I could possibly get into an Exadata-like configuration. Ooh, there's a few things and bits and bobs within Exadata, which comes with Exadata, which we don't get with the Oracle Database Appliance.
And it does not have the Exadata secret sauce.
Doesn't have the secret sauce, the HCC, the hybrid columnar compression, and things like this. The things that come with Exadata do not come with this, hence the price. Okay. So what else comes with this? We've got our raw disk storage, so we can have up to now 36 terabytes of storage on the device. All of a sudden, it's for a medium-sized company with let's say the need for minimum admin and maximum speed and maximum capacity. It's looking like a very, very attractive proposition for the customer. So what does it come with? It comes with our enterprise-winning, highly available Oracle 11G software. What options can you go? You can go for a real application cluster, rack. Go for rack 1 node, or you can even go for single instance if you so desire. We've also got the Oracle grid infrastructure, automated storage management, clusterware. Obviously, you've got Oracle Linux, and then you've got the Oracle Appliance Manager running the whole kit and caboodle. Okay.
One quick question.
Yep.
I'm not really sure, and this is something. So, when ODA first came out, the first one, it was told that two ODAs cannot be connected like a cluster server. Like a daisy chain. Has that changed over a period of time? And we say that rather than going for server storage and tape, rather server and storage, you can probably just look at ODA as a server and have multiple servers in your environment.
You can, but I don't think you can daisy chain them together. But what you can, I think what the better option for that would be to, let's say, if you needed, let's say, extra storage and things like this, you would use, for instance, the ZFS device. What would the purpose be of, let's say, daisy chaining the ODAs?
Just to have additional nodes, probably in a failover environment. Let's say one ODA box as such fails over.
Absolutely, that would work. Yes, for instance, let's say a disaster recovery scenario where you want one ODA here and another ODA in backing up, you would be able to do that. That is certainly a way to go. Okay, and we will be coming to that towards the end of that. Maybe in the next module we will be talking about that sort of backup strategies for the ODA device. Okay, there is a very, very good, let's say, strategy. So what is it again? It's the best in class availability. It's really what sort of high availability you want. Do you want active-active failover? Well, it's not really a failover if it's active-active, it's running concurrently. Do you want an active-passive scenario, or do you want single instance? Okay? You get whatever you want, whichever you want to, whichever configuration you want, you've got the full option here. So you've got the real application clusters, you've got the real application clusters 1 node option, okay? So you can have mutual failover. Here we have the mutual failover and load balancing. And here we have, let's say, for the single instance option, good availability with your enterprise edition, okay? So you've got all the options in there for whatever scenario you guys want when you're talking, I'd say, installing a highly available database. So Yodlee, let's say another example of where the ODA was deployed by, let's say, one of our customers. Now what Yodlee is that it's a financial services company, provides financial information on credit cards, bank accounts for financial institutions. Now what happened in the United States, they brought out a thing called the Patriot Act. And because, let's say, some of the information would be, let's say, from customers from outside of the USA, some of the customers were a bit queasy and not too happy about, let's say, their data being accessible by the US government, because Yodlee also services international financial institutions. Now, why was the ODA a good, let's say, a good option for or let's just to step back a bit. So what Yodlee did was they needed to put an Oracle database somewhere in the world outside of the US, but they needed fast connectivity, they needed speed, they need the ability to grow their capacity on demand with simplicity. Okay, and that was a very important thing for them. They need to be able to update their cores without having to do too much administration. Now, when I said, let's say at the start, let's say it's configurable from 2 to 24 cores. What that means is if you want to increase your capacity, you send. You initially set the capacities as you want. So you initially start off at, let's say, 8 cores. What you do is then you send a request to support that I want to update my capacity. Request send you an executable, and all of a sudden you've doubled your capacity if you so wish. So so you can grow. So you can grow as you wish, okay? And it's basically you run the executable. Fortunately, this does take a recycle because you're enabling new cores on a system. However, that's the way the pay-as-you-go capacity, the capacity on demand works. That was a big ask for this financial institution, okay? So what they did was they went out and they tendered, and they got 5 vendors. They tendered, I think they tested up to 15 solutions. There's 5 vendors to come in and give them a plate and give them a demonstration. Oracle won the deal, okay? Because of the beauty, because of the speed, the beauty, and also the capacity, and also the grow on demand and the simplicity of it, okay? So they considered 15 solutions, prototype 5. They even went so far as to prototype them, and they selected ODA. That was seen as a fit for them going forward, okay? So, like, once again, I can't underestimate why this is such a good option for, let's say, for a customer, for a system, for, let's say, an environment. And, you know, the build your own model it's slowly but surely in some respects. Obviously, we're still going to have build your own models out there, but certainly this is definitely the way forward for enterprise type computing, cloud computing, things like this. You administrators have nightmares trying to get systems together because of the complexity, because of the intricacy of these systems. But this certainly, let's say, solves an awful lot of problems for an awful lot of people. One other thing about the Oracle Database Appliance is that for a lot of people, or for a lot of customers, if they go in and audit themselves properly, okay, they might find out that they're, let's say, not using the licensed database capacity to its fullest extent. The Oracle Database Appliance brings all those database licenses together because you can use existing ones, and then you can work out what your real and true capacity and real and true use is. So in some respects, Oracle could be losing some revenue here insofar as we are actually selling you an appliance that is going to reduce your database licensing costs going forward in the future. Okay? It's a very big plus. So let's say here's an example of how the built-in scalability works. So let's say purchase single hardware configuration. You start, for instance, on the bare metal ODA device, 4 core licenses enabled. Scale up to maximum 32 licenses, no hardware upgrades required, and only license the databases that you need, okay, on the enabled cores that you use.
This is the only machine in the industry wherein you can actually turn off the cores at BIOS level.
Yes. It's
no other machine in this world, you can go around HP, Dell, anyone you can turn off the cores.
So if we wanted to build our own with, let's say, HP, there's no such thing as capacity on demand. If you buy 24-core box and install Oracle Rack on it, you pay for the 24-core license fee. There's no ifs or buts. That's the way it works. Okay. With our capacity on demand, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. This has to say it all. Complete pay all off straight from the start. Grow incrementally. How much savings is that going to be per year? Especially on let's say a rack, database license, 24 cores. That's not a cheap proposition from the start and licensing going forward. Remember when I was talking about the example of, let's say, putting your own together with Microsoft versus installing the Oracle Database Appliance? What can you do with 2,000 hours a year? So what does it do again? It simplifies the time-consuming tasks that DBAs have. Now I can see some people if they're working in the DBA industry, but this device will certainly free you up to go off and do other things, okay? So it'll fulfill some of your service level agreements. It'll fulfill some of your own KPIs that your IT manager gives you. What's the situation with that high availability project for that database? That's one of your yearly KPIs. Well, if you give me the funding for the Oracle database appliance, my KPI box is ticked in that respect. Here we have again, 835 hours in the first year, 669 hours in each subsequent year. That's over 3 years. Here we have, let's say, some examples of what the cost is going to be. The hardware is 60,000. 80, well, okay, 79, 78. Software licensing support. Sorry, this is actually incorrect. It's 2 to 30. Oh no, sorry, it's correct. Yeah, it's 32. Sorry, I was getting mixed up. 24, 32. Yes. Solution design, acquire, set it up in 4 hours. It might cost you $400 if your Oracle database administrator is doing it. It's not going to cost you $400 to set this up on HP, to set this up on Dell. Those are the costs. 19,042. Complex, additional operation expenditure, 7,600 per year, 7,600 per year. So we're talking in effect over 3 years a total cost savings of $100,000 US. Minimum. That's minimum. And I think sometimes, let's say for my personal opinion, this solution design, acquire and setup, these numbers have been very conservative. From my experience in the field and having worked and being that guy, trying to get high availability up and running, I would really, really question these hours. So now what we do is we use the Oracle database appliance as a solution in a box. Okay, we've said it all, so I'm going to quickly move through these slides because pretty much I'll just be regurgitating what I've been saying for the last hour or so. So what we're going to do is the ODA solution in a box supports application workloads through virtualization. You can go install the ODA in 2 ways. You can install it with Oracle Enterprise Linux, or you can on a bare metal fashion, or you can install it using Oracle VM. Okay. So what does it do when you use the Oracle VM? It provides a solution with efficient sharing of platform with one or more other applications. So what we're saying is you can, let's say, have your JD Edwards, if you so wish, okay? You can have your middleware tier now on the Oracle database appliance. And the preferred way, and probably the way we would suggest you do that, is within a virtualized fashion. Now, probably to go further in depth into this is probably going to be a different discussion, but just so you guys are aware of that, okay? So what you can also do when you, let's say, set it up in a virtualized fashion is you can isolate yourself between your database and your application workloads, okay? And with this configuration, it's a very important thing. You can actually grow and shrink your core usage within the virtualized nodes, okay? So in a bare metal, you can only go one way. You can only grow. You can't go back down. But with virtualization, you can now grow and shrink so you can turn on and turn off your cores as you use them, okay? We'll talk about the licensing in the next section. The licensing would be if you know anything about how we license our software on Oracle virtualization, on OVM, it's the same model. So you pin the database to a core and things like this, okay? Okay. So what you have the option here is you get the utilization, the full whole 32 cores if you so wish, within a virtualized manner, but you can drop down if, let's say, needs have changed through the, let's say, course of your business function, through the course of your business year. Okay. So what's it beautiful for? Beautiful for branch deployments. Remember I said before we've got an Exadata in the middle, one overseas. Remember the idea of the bank earlier on. Branch deployments, remember, let's say you've got your store card in your supermarkets, for instance. They've got an Exadata in their mothership. So they collate the information that the ODA gathers during the course of the day, week, month, okay? So it's an efficient deployment platform for distributed environments. So it addresses your data center and your infrastructure and your space constraints. And it overcomes, once again, the deficiencies. Let's say you might have all the, sorry, I'll just go back. You might have all the expertise in here. But let's say you might have somebody who's not too hot on the database, but he's a good sysadmin out here. But you've got the expertise in here. Give him the ODA machine, it'll go off, it'll run himself. You just give him a call, say, right, run that command, off you go. So what we can do now, when in the virtualized fashion, we can run the applications, enables the solution in the box option. So we've got application domain. We can run the application in one box, minimize the licensing costs. You were asking, how does it mean? With hard partitioning, okay? You were asking a question about Oracle virtualization. What is the implications of the growing it up to 32 and bringing it down? It's managed via hard partitioning. Grow and shrink with capacity on demand licensing.
So the previous ones were not hard partition. Previous OD was not hard partition.
Well, we didn't really, it was only towards the later, we didn't have the OVM support until a while back on it. Yeah, it's October, was it? And then, let's say that's being allowed in a virtualized mode, okay? So for instance, here we have our WebLogic server, our database appliance, and our Oracle VM. Simplified provisioning, maintenance, installation under 120 minutes. I've seen this done under 120 minutes. And another really, really important one is this is one, let's say you've got a database appliance. Oh, I'm going on a holiday on Friday. It's 6 o'clock and I'm just walking out of the office. Oh, we have an issue with our WebLogic server. Whoever's on the help desk support, can you ring Oracle support and tell them we have a problem with our WebLogic server? Oracle can't then turn around to you and go, sorry, Mr. Customer, that's probably a Microsoft problem. Sorry, Mr. Customer, that's probably a DB2 problem. Sorry, Mr. Customer, that's probably a VMware problem. It's our problem. So for all support issues and all support needs, you speak to Oracle, especially when you're running Oracle applications on the Oracle database appliance. So a lot of people call this the one throat to choke method. I don't really like that, but anyway. You've got a reliable, highly available architecture, especially through the dynamic load balancing, with a cluster configuration up and running within minutes. So it's a very affordable investment model, capacity on demand, one throat to choke, one area of support. So let's say in conclusion, I'm just finishing up now. What have we got? Where does it fit in? Where are we going? Now remember at the start I've been talking about engineered systems and what came first. Well, this is what came first, and it's amazing what grew out of this has now become this in some respects, okay? So this is for enterprise, superhuman, huge, enormous, trans-global customers, and this is, let's say, for the small and medium enterprise. So this is bringing availability to, let's say, your small and medium, high availability to small and medium enterprises, something that really hasn't happened in the past. This is game-changing technology. And just to conclude, simple to deploy, best-in-class performance, capacity on demand, solution in a box. So for any further, obviously, questions, information, queries, obviously we've got the link here, oracle.com/database appliance, and I'll open it up now for any questions.
So, and for the virtualized environment, how do you, for example, they're asking a question about can they attach, for example, external storage, or how to tackle the storage situation for the virtualized environment?
Well, okay, the storage at the moment is still exclusive for the database, right? Yeah. So they can attach, let's say, for instance, whatever storage they want, you know, but they're going to have to configure and sort that out themselves. Because unfortunately, at the moment, let's say the 18 terabyte or the 36 terabyte, okay, raw, that's for the exclusivity of the database at the moment. That might change, but at the moment, they have to, let's say, attach whatever storage for their applications they need. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's just for the exclusive use of the database, okay?
This could be a stupid question, but why does application require storage? I mean, at the end of the day, application is, I mean, my understanding, a user would access an application and go to a database. At the end of the day, it is a storage which is
Well, think of, for instance, a document management application. Think of, let's say, medical records, X-rays, for instance.
But that will again be going through the database.
But they're not necessarily going to store. They're going to store a link to it within the database. They're not necessarily going to store that. This is getting technical now. They're not going to necessarily store that information exactly in the database because it's too big. The database will get, let's say, fractured, and it will get, let's say, you need to defrag it, for instance. So basically what they would do is they would need storage for let's say, a document management solution. For instance, let's say for a hospital, X-rays or ultrasound scans. I had an issue with a customer since it's taken so long. I said, well, how big are these? Well, they're ultra-scan images and video clips, and they're like, each one of them is 2, 3, 4 gig that they're pulling across the network. But that's on storage somewhere. That's why the customer would need for an application storage.